I have the joy and the pleasure now to introduce Miss Tanya Carden. She does not need an introduction amongst this crowd, but she is going to share with us this morning some big questions that she finds in this wonderful movie, Smallfoot. So, Tanya, I turn it over to you now.
Good morning. I do invite you, if you haven't already, to just change your screen to speaker view, because while I will have a couple of pictures to share, it's mostly just going to be me talking at you. So good morning again. I was first introduced to Smallfoot in the lost days of yesteryear, when a mom and her daughter could spend a hot summer morning at the theater for $5 a person, including popcorn and the drink. So I would usually just go to these movies for the air conditioning and the popcorn. Wasn't usually that much interested in the movies. But the opening narration of Smallfoot made me realize immediately that this movie would be very much in line with UU principles. So before I can explain how and why, I'm going to give you the Cliff's Notes version of the movie so that you can have a reference to what I'm talking about. Smallfoot is about a Yeti named Migo. He knows that the Yetis fell from the great sky yak, and that their mountain rests on the backs of the great mammoths, which must be fed ice daily so that they won't overheat and sink down into the nothingness below the clouds. He knows his place and his job, as does everyone, because it is all written in stone. Literally, let me show you what I mean. This is the stonekeeper. You can see that his robe is made out of stones. On each of those stones, a truth is written, and that is the foundation of the Yeti Society. So we have our stonekeeper there, and that's how everybody knows everything about the society. But after a chance encounter with a Smallfoot, which the stones say do not exist, a Smallfoot, of course, is a human, that encounter turns Migo's world upside down. When confronted with the choice to speak his truth and be banished, or to accept the stonekeeper's truth and deny his own experience, Migo is cast out. Hoping to find a human and reverse his banishment, Migo, with the help of a band of fellow outcasts, heads below the clouds, which he believed was the border of the world. He finds a human, of course, a naturalist named Percy, who started out as a Steve Irwin type until he ran out of money and principles. After a slapstick comedic encounter, Migo takes Percy to the Yeti village at the top of the mountain. Despite a language barrier, the two become friends. Migo and Percy are welcomed into the village. The Yetis experience a renaissance. All of the outcasts are vindicated. But then the stonekeeper speaks privately with Migo and shares the history of the Yeti. The Yeti had previously lived lower in the mountains, but when they discovered the humans reacted to the Yeti's presence exactly how you would expect humans to react to Yeti's presence. Facing extinction, the Yetis settled on the top of a mountain so high that humans couldn't survive at the top. They built a machine to spew out a layer of steam to obscure the Yetis from the humans and the humans from the Yetis. The stonekeeper insists that protecting the good lies will protect the village. Faced with the fear of causing the annihilation of his village, Migo lies to the Yetis about what Percy is and where he found him. But remember what the stonekeeper said about humans not being able to survive on the top of the mountain? A betrayed outcast, Michi, notices that Percy isn't doing so well, so she returns him to the city below the clouds. But her curiosity leads her into a confrontation with lots of people, which of course includes the police. She learns why Migo lied to the Yetis, but she also sees that the humans think the Yetis are the monsters, even as the Yetis think the humans are the monsters. Percy recovers and sees the trouble that Michi has gotten herself into, and he manages to trick everyone into thinking that the Yeti was him in a costume the whole time. So Michi returns safely back home. After this, the stonekeeper and Migo decide to share the whole true history of the Yetis with the village, so they can decide together what to do with the information. In the end, the Yetis decide to bridge the gap between species and reveal their existence to the humans. Percy helps ensure that the initial contact doesn't get violent and we get a happy ending. So obviously I've had to leave out a lot, but I hope that I've managed to convey that it is a fun kids movie. But why would I call it a UU movie? Well, we had a small showing at the church, and Sherry, as always, remembered to take a couple pictures. So I'm going to share those with you real quick. So here we are, all socially distanced there. About half a dozen of us came, and it projected up onto the wall there quite nicely. So the showing went really well, and we had a great time, and the kids were so happy to be at the church and being able to see each other in the building and playing on the playground. So we actually discussed the movie a few days after this but we did discuss it with them. So I asked the kids why they thought it might be a UU movie. And they all thought of the end, the humans and Yetis together, overcoming their fear of each other to build a new community. And my heart was very full, and I'm so thankful to our RE teachers for letting our kids associate Unitarian Universalism with inclusivity and acceptance and belonging. They also highlighted that at the end, when Migo is sharing the true history of the Yetis, he says that the truth was messy and scary and frightening, but it's better than living a lie. And they thought that was also very much in line with UU principles. And that last, the better than living a lie, is what really struck me about this movie, because they handled the truth and its complexity and all the different things that it can mean. And they did it in a kids movie. So there are a lot of moments I could focus on, like how the Yetis are encouraged to stuff down any questions that are uncomfortable until they go away. Like how Migo's job as the gong ringer requires him to be true, even though you know it's going to hurt, you have to hit it head on. How the Stonekeeper learns that listening is the most important thing a leader can do. But we'll do the old grade school standby, and I'll pick 3 things to discuss, and they're all quotes from the movie. 1, all we are is curious. 2, good lies to protect our village. And the 3rd, knowledge is power. What are you going to do with it? So first, the song we listened to, as Teresa said, is from the movie, and it states that all we are is curious. There's nothing wrong with that, and that a life that's full of wonder is a wonderful life. When Migo first met the outcasts, he was concerned that they were questioning the stones. He was afraid that all they wanted to do was tear down everything that his world was built on. But Michi shared that wasn't her motivation at all. She was guided by what we call our first source, transcending mystery and wonder, and pursuing what we call our 4th principle, the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. She wanted to build up truth, and the only thing she wanted to fall was the veil between herself and truth. And I think it's important that her motive is simple curiosity. She wasn't starting with an agenda. She wasn't reacting in anger. She wasn't demeaning or devaluing what others believed. She just wanted to explore. And it seems like such a good, pure, simple thing, the pursuit of truth. But we find out that's rarely the case, both in life and in the movie. So we'll move to the 2nd. And when the Stonekeeper reveals to Migo that the purpose of the stones, as an aside, the song he sings to tell the truth is called Let It Lie. And that kind of writing is another thing that really endears me to this movie. When the Stonekeeper reveals that the purpose of the stones is to ensure that their smokescreen continues to hide the Yetis, Migo is horrified. So they're all lies, he asks. Good lies, the Stonekeeper maintained, to protect our village. And let me tell you, the kids did not like that at all. Except one who, after some thinking about it, mulled over the idea of a socially accepted and approved lie. And I really like that idea because I think we could probably find some of those in a lot of our social niceties and regulations. But in this context, it really put their backs up. When Migo, in his fear, decided to continue the lie to protect the lie, even though he did it because he wanted to protect everyone he loved. We see how his lies betrayed and hurt his new friends, and we do not approve of that decision. However, we can pretty directly compare that to Percy. So Percy is the human. Migo lies to protect the Yetis to make them think humans don't exist because he wants to protect the Yetis. Very soon after, Percy lies to the humans to make them think Yetis don't exist because he wanted to protect the Yetis. And it was really fun watching the cognitive dissonance there because that's always fun. When you break it down as far as I did, the situations seem the same, but we just feel that they're very different. And when you try to explain why, it's hard to use words. It just feels worse. They insisted that Percy just tricked people rather than lying. One insightfully pointed out that Percy was the only one who suffered the consequence for his lies. So he ended up being arrested for disturbing the peace and other things, while all of the outcasts suffered for Migo's lies. And I think that actually brings us to our third point, which is knowledge is power. What are you going to do with that power? I was reminded of Orlando Montoya's message a couple of weeks ago, if you were here for that one, that truth isn't truth without meaning. Our goals, motivations, and intentions matter when we are determining whether our search for truth is actually responsible. Migo and the Stonekeeper were living in complete fear of a perceived threat, and they fed that fear to the people who depended on them. Percy, in contrast, acted against his own interests to help his friends against an actual threat. I think that's one reason our communities and congregations are so important, because our search for truth does not take place in a vacuum. In the end, in the movie, the knowledge was shared with the community, and the community decided together the next step to take. When we purposely obscure things, whether with an actual smokescreen or in a more figurative sense, the unknown and the mysterious become threatening and frightening. But when we approach with curiosity and share freely, I think that we make the world a brighter, less frightening place. I wanted to share this movie with our UU youth because it shows that, as it says, a life that's full of wonder is a wonderful life, that curiosity should be nurtured rather than stuffed down. It also shows that the more you learn and explore, the more likely you are to find a truth that terrifies you. And it shows that the best way to deal with that is to come together and learn more rather than retreating in fear. In talking with our kids, I am confident that our traditions and faith heritage are being passed on to very capable hands. Thank you.